Disability is not a thing you see.
Right.
In South Africa, it's hidden. It's a shame. Yeah, I don't know how it is today, but it's not something like I see here in Denmark, where you see people in wheelchairs, people with different disabilities everywhere. Denmark has taught me to be more logical and take the emotions out of stuff. When you're dealing with having a child and you're sitting in a country where they're paying for everything, whether that's operations or the care that he eventually gets in an institution, you've got to put that against where you've come from. If I'd been in South Africa, I don't know what we could have been able to afford for Bjorn. I don't know.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Decoding Diaspora Podcast, a podcast in which we talk about the aspirations and everyday challenges of the diaspora. Whether you recognize yourself as a migrant, a refugee, an expat, or an international, no matter how you identify yourself, this podcast is for you. In my previous episodes, I've often talked about how migrants move to another country in search of something. That could be better job opportunities, it could be for higher education, or to marry the one you love. Or also because you want to improve your life situation and you are faced with difficult circumstances back home. But we often don't talk about the personal circumstances in which migrants find themselves while moving. And that may actually be the reason they move. What if, as a migrant, you are faced with a disability? What if you are the primary caregiver to a person with disability, and that's why you have to migrate to a new country? Well, that is the story of our guest today. My guest today is Lyndsay Jensen. She is a very accomplished woman wearing very many hats. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of the English newspaper, The International Denmark. She also coined the term the forgotten gold, which has gotten a lot of traction in recent times. And more recently, she has been the founder and launched the Changing Places Denmark movement as well. And it is this latter part which I'm truly interested in talking to Lyndsay about today, because it ties into with her very personal story of living with disability and experiencing disability in close quarters, because she has been the primary caregiver to her son, who has many medical challenges. I have so much to talk to Lyndsay about. This might be a tough and serious topic, but that which is unique and that which is very particular to a particular migrant may actually find resonance and be meaningful to many others out there. So I want to hear from Lyndsay today how her disability experience with her son has shaped her view of her new country and how her adopted country has enabled her in coping with this life's big challenge. Welcome, Lyndsay.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy that we're making time to have this conversation, Lyndsay, today, because podcasts are a great opportunity to talk about that is fun and easy and uplifting. But sometimes that uplifting and inspiration comes from tough stories, from difficult circumstances. And I like to delve into those parts. And I'm very happy that, Lyndsay, you are willing to share your life story with us. Lyndsay, you are a woman who has had a very flourishing career in the publishing industry. And then when you moved to Denmark, you also had challenges finding work and establishing yourself again. And while that is a fascinating and tough story in itself, we will have to focus on something else today, like I mentioned previously. For the benefit of our viewers, take us to your origin story. Where are you from and where did you grow up? And how did Denmark happen along the way?
Right. Well, I was born in the UK. My parents are both British. My mom's from an Irish-British background. So we're immigrants. And, you know, my parents in the 70s decided they wanted something different for our family. And my father saw an opportunity for a foreman in a mill in either Australia or in South Africa. So he chose South Africa. And my father went ahead and moved over. And then my mom followed with me at 9 months old and my sister at 6 years old on a ship We came over on a boat from Southampton in the UK, docked in Cape Town, and then came down to Durban with another ship. So we were 3 weeks on a ship, my mom with 2 small kids
That is
alone.
amazing in itself. So you migrated at 9 months old. You were a tiny migrant yourself at that time. And
exactly.
3 weeks on a ship, that's fascinating. Do you have any memories? Can you have memories of that time?
Not at all, but my sister does. She said that, she was really encouraged to play with the other kids on board. My mom, of course, being a young mom herself, she was very nervous coming into this new country in Africa. And funnily enough, in the 70s, 80s was towards the end of apartheid. And it was very interesting, my mom said, because the Afrikaans people wouldn't talk to the British people because of the history with the Boers and the British soldiers. So they wouldn't speak to my mom. But she said she could feel this divide definitely in South Africa when she first moved over.
Yeah. Imagine the change, Southampton to South Africa. I mean, there are so many characters in this story that I think I wish your mom was present here as part of this podcast. I wish your partner was present here as part of this podcast, because these are all very important characters in what we're going to talk about. But then you grew up in South Africa.
Yes.
And while you were growing up, did you ever imagine relocating?
I had mostly friends that were from immigrant parents, funny enough, growing up. I gravitated towards them. Not that I didn't have South African friends, but if I look at my close friends, their parents were either British or German. So I kind of feel like I grew up in this multicultural world. I also attended private school.
Yeah.
For most of my growing up, I was at a private school. And then my mom put me into the local government school. So I'd grown up with the kids of the exiled ANC leaders, the freedom fighters. So I was never exposed to that only white system. So it was really weird to go to an all-white government school. By the time I was about, 15, 16. So I come from having friends from all different cultures.
Yeah. And so you had this international milieu while you were growing up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so as a younger adult, you met your husband. Take us through that. And then somehow this Danish angle happened.
Right. So I met Nikolai online on an online chat room, not through Tinder and all these other wonderful things. This is before Facebook, before Skype.
Yeah.
All we had was the telephone, the fax machine, and letter writing and email, and that was it. So yeah, we met sort of randomly, and after much correspondence, we decided we had to meet each other. So I went to Copenhagen. Stayed with him for 2 weeks, and he got down on one knee in the middle of one of the squares in Copenhagen and proposed.
That was quick, and when destiny has already decided that for you, things do move fast. So
exactly.
Then did you move to Denmark because you got married, or what happened?
No, so I came over and we got married actually in Copenhagen. So that was the first, and then Nikolai decided he's not attached to Denmark, I think, in the way that a lot of Danes are. I mean, I think the only thing he missed besides his family was rugbrød. He wanted his Danish bread. That was the only thing he really missed when he was in South Africa.
Yeah.
But he moved to South Africa because I was a bit more established. I had my own house. I was more of a career. He just started in IT. So he came to Denmark fully embraced as an international foreigner. They thought he was super fascinating.
I mean, he came to South Africa and he was fully embraced. Yeah,
absolutely. Luckily, Nikolai's English has always been really good, but they thought he was very, very charming, and they thought he was great. And he never had that same thing that a lot of internationals experience here, where you didn't feel included. More than that, he was very included, and he didn't have a problem finding a job. Could that be because he was in IT? I don't know. But foreigners are kind of put on a pedestal in South Africa because you come with all this international knowledge, and it's really exciting for South Africans.
Yeah.
So I would say it was a little easier, apart from a couple of wobbles when, you miss your family and the usual stuff that we go through.
And this was in sharp contrast to your experience of finding work in Denmark. I know I said we would not delve into it because that is a whole story to unpack for us as well, which is a really important and insightful journey as well. But take us through that time when now you have met Nikolai. Nikolai has relocated to South Africa for you from Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a family. And what happens there?
Okay, so we had Connor very soon after we kind of got married. We had Connor. Everything was great. I was
Your
doing my
first
career.
boy.
Yes, our first son, who's now 27. And then Bjorn came along 6 years later. And unfortunately, he was born too early. He was born prematurely at 29 weeks. And we were kind of given the blowing news that he definitely would have some sort of a disability. They couldn't tell at that point when he was born, and he spent the next 2 months in the ICU fighting for his life because, it's too early to be born, so there's lots of complications that go with that.
Yeah. And then he did develop disability when he survived, was out of ICU. What did you discover, when and how? What was the situation?
By the time he actually left the ICU, he was still using a little bit of oxygen just to breathe, just to help him. Because obviously when you're born at 29 weeks, your lungs are not fully formed. So he'd already, before he was born, they put me in hospital the week before he was born and gave me steroid injections to strengthen his lungs. But his lungs were one of the biggest problems when he was in ICU. So he came home on a little cannula nose thing with a little tank oxygen with him, and he had that for about a month or two, and then he weaned himself off and he was able to breathe by himself okay.
Imagine so little a baby with an oxygen tank. That's unthinkable, really.
Yeah, it was a bit odd because we never stopped going out. Like, it was important that I was so proud of him, like I am of his brother. So we put him in his little baby buggy, and then the tank would kind of go in the back, and he'd have this oxygen thing. And we had so many people come up to us and, bless the baby. South Africa is very multicultural with a lot of different beliefs. So we would have people from the Indian community that would bless him, and people from the African community that come in and say something. People are meaning. They're very well-meaning, but disability is not a thing you see. Right. In South Africa, it's hidden. It's a shame. Yeah, I don't know how it is today, but it's not something like I see here in Denmark, where you see people in wheelchairs, people with different disabilities everywhere. So it's very much, for a lot of communities, it's a shame, which is sad. But
you were just a happy mom. You were You were happy for your child. You took your child out.
Yeah.
And did they see disability at that time, or they were just blessing another beautiful child?
Well, the Indian ladies would say, shame, the baby's tired, because when he would lay against you, he'd flop, because he didn't have a lot of muscle tone, which is part of CP when they're first born.
CP stands for
cerebral palsy.
Right. So at what point did you discover that he had cerebral palsy?
Well, they told us early on, they said that there would be some sort of brain damage. So cerebral palsy is basically a damage in an area in the brain that has sort of motor function and all these things. But the thing is, with cerebral palsy, it's classed into many stages. Bjorn is on the worst level, where he's got multiple issues in his body. Some people maybe have a hand that's a little bit curved or deformed. Some people are able to speak. Some people can't speak, or they speak with a certain slur. So cerebral palsy kind of is a motor function area in some part of the brain, and it can affect people in different ways. But for Bjorn, they said to us, just watch for his normal milestones like his brother would have had, holding the head up, crawling, turning over. He didn't do any of that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now when you take the baby out and you are already beginning to see that he is not progressing and meeting his milestones, so, and you are prepared of the level of that there is brain damage, but you don't know what is the entire ramifications, because that you will see how he progresses, how life shapes out, right?
Exactly.
So then how did the family take it? And what happened that I have come to understand that you left South Africa for Denmark to seek a better life for your family and for Bjorn, because this disability came to define everyone's life.
Yes.
But take us through that. What happened, and how did you arrive at this decision to move to another country?
Well, as we were told, with this disability, it would get worse. We would start to see things. They can't actually do a brain scan on a baby until they're about a year old to really see if there's any damage. And when they did a brain scan, they could actually see that there were missing parts of his brain. Where neurons that would usually connect weren't connecting, they wouldn't have a chance to connect. But the brain is pretty amazing. This is why our research is so far behind, because the brain is such an undeveloped, undiscovered area of the body. They put money into cancer research and everything else, but there's actually not a lot of research done on the brain because it's so vast. But we could see that Bjorn was not getting any better, and I started to think, what is Bjorn's future like in South Africa? I love South Africa. I think the people are amazing, but unfortunately the government is not the best at taking care of its people. And after talking to a lot of people, I have a friend in the UK who works in the disability area. She's South African, but she moved over there. And she just said to me, are you thinking of moving? And I said, we're looking at either Denmark or England, because I'm from there. Obviously, Denmark was a little bit more challenging because I couldn't speak the language. But we looked to the UK, and she was actually the one who said, you're best moving to one of the Scandinavian countries because they really know their research there. They do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned to you before, I'd seen a documentary that was on South African TV about an institution, what you would call in Danish a borstel, in South Africa. And it was government run, government funded. And there was a picture of a young adult man who had cerebral palsy. He was in a diaper, and he was left in his diaper for like 4 days, not changing him. And they had security footage of some of the staff hitting him because he was crying. And I just said, I cannot even imagine Bjorn going into something like that.
And this documentary was telling of a situation that panned out in South Africa.
Correct. And it was an undercover documentary. And, of course, somebody had obviously blown the whistle on them to say that this is happening. But this wasn't the first place that I'd heard of in South Africa where they were mistreating people with a disability. And my heart sank. And my husband had been in Denmark and came back, and I said to him, we have to move. And it wasn't just for Bjorn's sake, but also, his brother Connor. It's becoming increasingly difficult in South Africa to actually get a job in South Africa. A lot of people are entrepreneurs there, and they start their own businesses because there's not enough employment.
Yeah.
Employment rate is incredibly high. And also, when apartheid was abolished, there came a new act called affirmative action, where certain companies have to hire according to race. And a white male kind of falls very far down because obviously it's a throwback from the apartheid years. They want to give the most disfortunate more of a chance.
Yeah. So your older son, Connor, was also a young boy at that time when you were basically being futuristic, and you were thinking, how would life be for my two sons?
Yeah.
You were thinking of Connor's possibilities, and you were thinking of how to best help Bjorn with his disability. And then, because of the recommendations that Scandinavia has greater support and respect for this, that decision came about. Was everybody on board? Did your husband feel okay with this? Were you completely okay with this? What was going on in that big decision making? I often ask this because this is such a life-changing decision. It alters our life. And how do we arrive at such a big decision, even when you have navigated the facts and figures in research and background research and gotten your recommendations? When are you ready, and how do you get there?
We actually made the decision. I made the decision. My husband kind of just said, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. My husband's always been like that. He's that kind of a person. Whatever makes me happy, he said, let's do it.
Okay.
He could see the sense in what I was saying, because he could see after 10 years of living in South Africa how the infrastructure in South Africa wouldn't allow for a disability. I mean, they don't have anything there that I would say that opens up to people with disabilities.
Yeah.
So he didn't really fight the decision. The only thing, I think he was very used to his lifestyle of having a pool and having 2 cars and a big house and a big garden. He was like, oh, I've got to go back to living in an apartment maybe.
Yeah.
He got very used to.
There's such a vast difference in lifestyle between South Africa and the Danish lifestyle. There's a lot of help in South Africa. There's a lot more space. And Denmark, things are different. Things are a lot more secure and perhaps more orderly. You mentioned once when little Bjorn was growing up, you had to make a wheelchair for him, which was custom made. Take us through that experience. How little was he at that time?
Oh, he must have been about two years old. Yeah, and with seating position for somebody with cerebral palsy is really important from a young age because it forms their spine. A lot of people with cerebral palsy in Bjorn's situation have something called scoliosis of the spine, where the spine curves in like an S shape. And that unfortunately gets worse and worse and worse over time as they grow. So much to the point where, like Bjorn, he eventually had to have surgery where they have a metal pole inserted in the back to keep their back straight. The reason that they do this is because when you start getting scoliosis, all the internal organs start to get compressed. So that's your lungs, your stomach, your liver, your kidneys. So everything kind of gets pressed, and that makes it very difficult for breathing, for eating. So it comes with a whole host of other. And I think I've said it before, and I apologize for swearing on your podcast, but there's a shit and there's a shittier decision when it comes to disability. And every parent out there with the disabled children will relate to that, because there's no great decisions when it comes to disability. You just have to make the one that takes a person without less complications or out of pain. For us, pain has been the biggest thing for Bjorn. All operations we've done for Bjorn has been to ease his pain.
Yeah.
At least for a couple of years until we have to figure something else out.
Right. And how was the medical? Did he also have operations in South Africa?
Yeah. So when he was born, his intestines came out through his tummy. You know, the hole when they have. So he had to have that surgery once, and then he didn't start having problems with sort of his hips or anything like that until he moved to Denmark. Thank God. Because we had private health insurance, and just having Bjorn in the ICU, it costs an absolute fortune. Your health insurance does cover a certain amount, and what really upset me, and I think we need to be very grateful for this in Denmark. In South Africa, when you're on private health care, when your child's in ICU, it's only allowed to have the parents that come and visit them in ICU because of germs, and I'm talking now 21 years ago. I don't know how it's changed today. So the parents are allowed to visit you and the grandparents, but no siblings are allowed to come in under a certain age. So Connor, his brother, didn't see him until he came out of ICU, which is heartbreaking for him. Of course. So the only other people that are allowed into the ICU are their medical insurance people, which kind of shocked me. And I remember sitting there, and this person came in with a clipboard looking very official, looking at the doctor's charts, writing something down on their pad and leaving. And I said to the nurse, "Who's that?" And they said, "That's the medical insurance. They want to know how much longer is the baby going to be in ICU." Very, very cold. I really, really hated them being in there. And I actually
felt a business case, doing the math, seeing the expense. Yeah.
So, your sort of your empathy in that regard, it was totally gone with somebody like that. And that really shocked me until I came to Denmark and had to look at things more logically. And we can talk about that later.
Yeah. And so how old was Connor when you finally moved? How old was Bjorn and Connor when you moved?
So Bjorn was 4 years old and Connor was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you have taken the decision, and your husband has been on board, and you have made the big decision. Now begins the new journey, the new part of life.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago did you arrive in Denmark, and what were the initial days like?
So we arrived Valentine's Day, 2008.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a long, long time ago.
It's so beautiful that you remember your arrival day, because I remember my arrival day as well.
I think a lot of us do.
It's such a special day. I almost call it my Independence Day.
Exactly. Well, it kind of feels like you're being reborn. And I think that a lot of us probably do, yeah. But yeah, February 14th, 2008, we arrived. We came from 36 degrees because it's South Africa's summer. And we landed in the middle of a winter storm, minus something with snow. Of course,
imagine.
My older son thought this was the best thing because he'd never seen snow. And I think my first taste of coming as a I would say, a white privileged South African to Denmark is I'm used to people doing stuff for us in South Africa. So coming here, we'd shipped a lot of our stuff over, and we'd actually timed it that the stuff would come like the day after we arrived. So we were in an apartment, which I'd never been in before. New experience, but we had nothing in the apartment apart from a blow-up mattress, and the boxes arrived. So my son decides he's going to sit. He has his boxer shorts on, no shoes because he's a South African, runs straight outside of the apartment door into snow, realizes, okay, this is not right, and runs back inside. And I said to Connor, are the delivery guys here? He said, yeah, Mum, they're outside. They're dropping the boxes off. And I said, tell them to bring it upstairs. And he came back up. He said, Mum, they said that that's not what they do.
Oh my God, that is culture shock.
That
Culture
was a
moment.
culture shock for
One.
me. And I said
Who's
to my
going to take all
husband,
those boxes up?
I
Yes.
said to my husband, he said, we have to take them up. I'm like, we pay for them to be delivered. He said, yeah, but you have to pay extra to bring them in. And I'm like, in South Africa, they would just bring them inside. There'd be no
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah, I get it. That's the case in many other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And
So that was my first.
Yeah. And in that move, I can't help but ask, how did Bjorn take the journey?
It was an okay journey for Bjorn. My mom, bless her heart, she passed away 2 years ago. She actually upgraded us onto business class for the whole journey. And the reason is they've got bucket seats, and Bjorn couldn't sit in his wheelchair. And this is something that I'm happy to say is starting to change in the aviation world. They are starting to look at a way to incorporate people in wheelchairs that can't get out to actually just drive straight in and lock into a seat position, which we're very excited about in the industry, but it's taken a long, long time.
Yeah.
So they had bucket seats. So Bjorn was able to lay his body so he could he wouldn't have to sit up. And he was fine. He actually, the air hostesses were lovely with him. He was just, Bjorn was super cute when he was a kid. So
yeah. So great to
everybody just
hear
took him.
that journey, which was the big life journey for him as well, panned out okay. And
Yeah.
then now you are a career woman, you're an accomplished woman, and now you have to start life anew in Denmark, and you're a capable woman. So how were the first days? What was that time like? We are talking a good 17, 18 years ago. You mentioned your experiences with the commune to be ones. And
Yeah.
that was in what context, and how did that pan out? Please share.
So Nikolai had to find a job pretty quickly. I mean, we had savings that we brought with us, but as you know, coming from South Africa with the exchange rate to Danish krona, it very quickly got lost in our upfront rent that you pay, which is exorbitant.
Yeah.
And we had to buy furniture and everything. So it quickly starts to run out. So my husband knew that he would get something a lot quicker being in IT. And yeah, he got a job within like a week or so.
Incredible. Yeah.
No problem. But it was through networking.
Yeah.
Somebody who knew somebody. So again, I say networking is key in Denmark.
Yeah.
So he got a job, no problem. And I realized, and I said to him, what do we do with the boys? How do I do this? We'd already been to the bore service. Nikolai had got a CPR card back because he'd been away for 10 years.
Yes.
But it was very quick for him to get a CPR card back. And then they obviously made sure the boys were getting theirs and I was getting mine. And I was a British passport holder, not South African.
So at what point did you have to call the commune?
So Nikolai got the job, and I said to Nikolai, what do I do with the boys? How do I get them into schools and stuff? And he says, you're going to have to figure that out. And it wasn't my husband being difficult. It was more like, I've got to keep this job because it's the only money that we'll have coming in once our other money had kind of run out. So I thought, okay, I can do this. How difficult is this? And I had Bjorn sitting on the couch, and Connor was watching Cartoon Network. And Connor had been picking up all Cartoon Network in Danish, which he really didn't like at first, but then he kind of got used to it. And I always encourage people that are coming over with young kids his age, put them in front of Cartoon Network or whatever is the equivalent here.
And that's such a fabulous way to pick up the language. And they are so capable and agile at that age anyway.
Exactly. They're very quick at pace. So I phoned the commune. Because there was no international house back then. International house was just I don't know when it started, but it wasn't when I was there.
Yeah.
So my father-in-law was quite helpful. He just said to me, but you have to phone the commune and tell them. And I said, but I don't speak any Danish. And he said, just talk to them in English. He
Right.
didn't think it was a big idea. And he was an older, Danish man. So I phoned the commune and this lady picked up the phone. He's a receptionist for the commune. And I said, can I speak to somebody in English, please? And she went, night. And she put the phone down.
Seriously?
Yeah.
She just absolutely put the phone down and did not.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I tell people sort of that are in the commune that I'm working with now, they're horrified about the story. They're really upset by it.
I mean, that's rather brutal and abrupt.
Yeah, it was very jarring, and I remember just sitting there looking at Connor and Bjorn and just crying, and Connor said, Mom, what's wrong? My older one. And I said, they just said something and put the phone down. And Connor said, what did they say? I said, they said something like "nai." And he goes, that means no, Mom. So what did you ask them? And I said, I asked them if they could speak English. He goes, Mom, I've picked up a couple of words. Maybe I can try and ask.
Wow.
He, in very, very broken Danish, a very brave 10-year-old boy, picked up the phone, spoke to the same lady, and she was so sweet with him and said, in English, she said, I'll try to find somebody that can talk to you. And then this really nice lady came on the phone and spoke to me.
So she responded to your son in English?
Yes, because he tried Danish first.
That's so sweet that he did everything he could and then managed to,
Yeah.
eke out the right response out of this lady.
He basically, he was already at school by then. So he was at this integration school. He asked if he could borrow my phone, phoned a friend, a Danish friend, and the guy told him how to say, I need you to help my mom. She doesn't speak English. And he actually was able to say that in Danish.
Beautiful, incredible, really.
Yeah. So he was a tough boy back then. So that was my interaction.
Did you finally get the help that you were seeking from the commune?
Yeah, very nicely enough, because we have a handicapped son, actually, like what they call a salgsbehandler. I'm guessing it would be like a social worker.
Yeah.
Everybody in Denmark that has a disabled kid has the opportunity. And if you haven't reached out to one, if you've just got here, you go to your commune and you ask for a salgsbehandler who can actually help you navigate.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, this very nice lady came to actually visit us, and she said, okay, we've got to get your older son into an integration school, because that's what they were. So it was like a normal school in the area that had a side class with all the foreigners in. She said, we'll put him in that, and then once he's learned Danish enough to cope, then we'll put him into a mainstream school, public school.
Yes.
And I didn't want Connor to go to a private school, because to me, Denmark was it. This was our final destination. I had no thoughts of ever moving back to South Africa. Of course, I left my family there, my friends, but I knew this was not the country for my children to grow up in. And they were the main reason we moved. So that's why I just said, you know what, this is going to be our country. So I put him in public school.
And you went all in with the right big choice makings to, fully invest in the public education system.
Correct.
And invest in your children's education. So how did Bjorn's life pan out? What kind of education did he get in Denmark? What kind of help did he get in Denmark? You mentioned at one point that he also had many operations. So it seems like life has been full. Please take us through Bjorn's life and how you have lived with his disability through the years.
So at the same meeting where they found out where Connor was going to go, they looked at Bjorn and they said, listen, we need to find a special needs kindergarten for Bjorn. And I said, is it all disabilities? And they said, yes, we have put all the kids in the same place, but we need to find something sort of close to Ørstal. And they didn't have anything except this amazing kindergarten in Hellerup that's called the Fierbier. Yeah. And it was amazing. And so much so, I was really happy to pass the information on to our columnist who writes about disability for the International. And she has a son with autism.
Yeah.
And she's new, so she was kind of so stumped by what do I do with my son? They just found this autism diagnosis. And I was like, get hold of your caseworker. And then she came to me and said, they've given me these schools. Do you know any of them? And there I saw Decoding. So I was so happy to be able to tell her it was the best decision to go there, and she's so happy there.
Yeah. And this is how, your experience matters and is so helpful to somebody confronted with a similar situation.
Exactly.
There are the right schools, and one of them is Decoding in Hellerup.
Yeah.
On the outskirts of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
That's great to know. So did Bjorn take to that school well? How did that work?
Yeah, so we would, at the time, we had the handicap bus service called VBT. You see them around in Copenhagen the whole time with the big VBT on the side. So he would have one driver that would come and pick him up for school in the morning at our apartment, drive him to school, and then bring him back. And he always had the same driver, so he wasn't stressed about who it was. He loved his time at Decoding. He was so happy.
Was he sharing this van with other people?
Yes. Yeah, you share it with other children with disabilities, and the drivers are trained in how to take care if there's any problems. They don't do any sort of, if they have seizures, but they're trained to call the ambulance services and to take care, and they have experience. But those drivers actually get quite a bond with the kids. It's very special. Bjorn knew when his driver was going to be coming, and her name was Bettina. I still remember her. So they really take care of your kids, So he would go there every day, and then eventually I got a job working somewhere. So I was busy there, and then I'd rush back home to make sure I was there for when he got home. Yeah.
You also mentioned that the bus service somehow changed at one point, that they wouldn't drop the child to your workplace.
Yeah. It wasn't that so much that my boss at the time wouldn't let me go early.
Right.
So it was a bit of an issue getting Bjorn, picked him up in the afternoon. So I asked him to drop him off at my work so I could go from my work with Bjorn home, and we'd actually take the train, but the trains were very unreliable. It was difficult sometimes to get on the trains because they weren't straight on from the ground level. Like the metro is, you can just go straight on with wheels. Some of the trains are a step up, and there's no disability ramp, so you actually can't get on the trains. And we asked one of the train drivers if he could help me the one day, and he said no. And I said, why? And he said, we're not allowed to pick up anything. And I'm like, I'm standing here with a child, it's freezing, he's handicapped, can you please help me inside? And he just said no. And so this passenger actually got off and helped me take Bjorn on the train.
Wow. And are we talking about an S train in Denmark or an S train?
Yeah, so it was a train that goes from Hovedbengal to Ørstal.
Right.
I think it's a regional train. I'm not sure. I'm not very good with trains anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good that you got help, and there is a lot of sensitivity and empathy around in the community. What have been the most difficult challenges dealing with Bjorn's disability over the years that he has grown up? And you can also share with us what are the various challenges that he's confronted with, and how did you find your way with these different challenges? How did you even know where to go, what to do?
I think I can say the most difficult is that we don't have a family support here. No, we have Nikolai's father who's recovered from cancer twice. He's not physically able to actually pick up Bjorn or carry him in any way. Nikolai's mother died. His sister died soon after we kind of moved to Denmark. And his brother's not the kind of person.
So no real immediate family available to offer you that support. And what kind of challenges was Bjorn growing up with?
Yeah, so Bjorn, you could see that his hips started to change with the scoliosis, with the lack of movement because he couldn't stand very well. They do a lot of training at the school, but sadly, when they leave kindergarten, they move to a normal Folkeskole situation. Yeah. They're not as, They're not as intense on their therapy. And nobody prepares you for that. And it's the same, and I'll come on to him being an adult, things change again. So when they're young, they try to give so much therapy. I mean, we had brilliant physiotherapists that were constantly working with Bjorn's legs, had him in these braces on his legs that kept his legs very straight. Also, when Bjorn came home with us and we give him a bath, Nikolai is very much a touch person. So Nikolai would spend time after his bath with cream and massaging his feet every single night, his hands, his arm.
Yeah.
So he had more movement, much better movement. Because cerebral palsy affects so many muscles in your body. It's basically the brain is telling it what to do. And if the brain connections aren't there, you don't know how to place your feet correctly. You don't know how your hands should sit. So there's various people that have different issues with CP.
Yeah.
But Bjorn's definitely got worse over time. You know, we tried to do as much with him as possible. His school that he was first in, so we were there for 3 years. He was at a kindergarten. Then we decided we didn't want to live in the city anymore. It's, to me, living right next to a metro station and having people screaming at night and having an apartment with people above us, it didn't work. We had a lot of students in these apartments and they would throw parties till 5 a.m.
Right.
And I actually went up one night, shouted at them, and then calmed down and explained to this guy that if Bjorn doesn't sleep, his brain gets tired, which means he'll get seizures. I said, and when he gets seizures, and I explained this to this young boy who was all of like 21, and he said to me, I am so sorry. And he never had a party after a certain time.
Oh, dear. Great. At least he responded positively and did not say, not my problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great that, you got the empathy because you explained the tough situation you were faced with. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband was a lot less tolerable. He went out and screamed at them and banged on the door. And he's a big guy, so they kind of stopped very quickly. But that's not the best way to approach it. And I always believe in, like, I always encourage kids if we were out and the little kids are like looking and the mom's going, don't look at him. I would say to the moms, if you're comfortable, I'm okay with your child coming up and asking questions. And the kids are so wonderful because they want to ask. Now, I can't speak to all parents in those situations because I have a lot of friends that don't want to be asked. I'm very different. I believe that Bjorn has been put here on this earth to show the vulnerability and show that not everybody's the same. Everybody's different. And that's okay. And ask these questions because I think there's great knowledge in asking questions about somebody with a disability and they can explain it. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and you are coming from a place where you don't want to hide this reality of life. There is, God made us this way and we have to own it up and live it up with full grace. And if somebody wants to know more, you want to talk about it. And no wonder we are talking about it on this podcast. So these difficult city circumstances made you want to move. And then what happened?
Yeah. So I found a place. I was just looking through a whole bunch of websites and I found this place in the country and it was like right off the highway. And I thought, okay, that's easy enough to get from our place to the motorway. It's right there. And I approached my husband about it. I said, I'm ready to move. I don't like living in the city. And he's kind of, he kind of just takes it as he comes, He's like, okay, you want to move? We can move. He said, I kind of like Copenhagen.
He's so flexible. I haven't met
super.
him. I think he's splendid indeed. So supportive and
he's very flexible. Yeah, very flexible. He says, as long as it makes you happy and the boy's happy, let's do it.
Fantastic.
But I just wanted more space because as Bjorn grew, his equipment needs that we had for him grew.
Yeah.
And you
had a wheelchair in an apartment situation.
And a standing frame and another bath chair. So there's a lot of equipment that goes with disability.
Which is definitely not feasible in an apartment setting. So you found a house and you moved.
Yeah, we moved to the country. And
so this is like chapter 2 of the new life.
Yeah, I know we've got to stop moving.
How did countryside of Denmark shape things when you were, when your life is already so decided?
Yeah.
And, colored by this aspect.
I think country life was very difficult because they don't speak much English down there at the time. So it kind of forced me into a situation, and it already forced me into a situation because Nikolai couldn't come to all the commune meetings. So I would have to go to the meetings not having Danish, and they try muddle through on English, but I missed so much. And I was signing documents and I was like, I need my husband to look at these first. And they said, no, you have to sign them now, which is very, if I think in hindsight, if I'd been different, I would have insisted that I take this home first. But I was new in a country that I didn't know their cultures and the ways that they did business.
What kind of documents were you asked to sign?
It was like small documents, like saying, are you happy to put Bjorn into this school and this kind of teacher? It wasn't like serious documents, but I still would have liked Nikolai to have had the opportunity to read them. So my husband, when it happened again, my husband said to me, tell them you're not touching it until you brought it home.
Well done. Yeah.
So I did that. And I think it's getting the confidence in your new country that is so hard, because you don't know if you're going to, you don't know if you're going to, piss somebody off. I knew that I needed these people in the commune to get decisions done. I didn't want to make any enemies. And at first I would get really angry and say, but I'm waiting for a decision. Nobody's getting back to me. I'd scream and shout. Then I quickly knew that Danes do not tolerate somebody speaking to them like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to find a way to be firm, but still be respectful.
Yeah, and that is the tightrope walk when you don't know the culture that well. Yeah. What is the right way to be in order to assert yourself?
Yeah.
How much to assert yourself that, you don't put people off and still get the kind of collaboration you were seeking. Indeed, these are the little things, these are the little experiences that are actually so important in making a new place work for you.
True. And I think a lot of foreigners that come here don't realize this, because like in South Africa, if you want things to be done, you've got to scream and shout.
Yes. I can relate to that in India, There is a more built-in aggression because there are too many people.
I think you just don't have patience, and you just get on with it. But here there's, the people, most of the people, I would say, that are sort of in charge here in Denmark know what they're doing. There's a system, and they follow that system. And I used to say to my husband in the first 3 years, and I say the first 3 years because I believe that's the make or break of people leaving Denmark or staying. In those first few years, I'd say, why don't they do this? And my husband was so tired of making excuses like, why can't they do it like we do it in South Africa?
Yeah.
And he would say, eventually he started saying, if you don't like it, go to Christiansborg and fight it there.
Well, he's cool, man. Yeah, I mean,
he used to drive me crazy when he said that.
Why just whine about things and complain? Why not make the actual change and go to Parliament, which is
exactly
Christiansborg, Danish Parliament. So in all this movement and change, what was the medical situation for Bjorn? He had a lot of operations. How did the Danish medical system enable the family and you guys and him deal with so many complications? And just for the benefit of our viewers, of course, Bjorn is dealing with a lot and has dealt with a lot. Bjorn is nonverbal, and he has also suffered from epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and has had seizures. And if he didn't sleep enough, he would get more seizures. And then there was this cycle of problems that one led to the other. And help the medical condition, our audience understand the medical condition with his growing muscles and how they respond.
Okay, so currently Bjorn today at 21 years old is on 17 different medications.
Right.
These 17, unfortunately, what happens with medications, if you are medicating for seizures, it affects something else in the body. So you have to have a medicine on top of that. If you're medicating for instance, he has a lot of acidity because of that's just the way that his stomach works. So you have to medicate him with something else to bring down the acidity. When that happens, they also get stomach ulcers, stomach bleeds. So that can also affect him, and then his vitamin D levels go down. So there's a lot of crossing over with a lot of drugs to keep Bjorn at the level that he's at. I mean, I call him my little druggie because he's just got so many medications. He also has now today, and this is a new thing that's sort of come in, he has what's called a husk machine. So it's a coughing machine, which he uses this twice a day. And it actually strengthens his lungs because coming up to winters, Bjorn always gets sick. And if Bjorn gets pneumonia, he ends up in hospital. When he ends up in hospital, he ends up on antibiotics. Sometimes these antibiotics, he's gotten so used to them in his body, his body can't fight it. And I'm going to tell you some facts here, very unemotional, but things like pneumonia are one of the biggest killers in people with cerebral palsy. It's lungs. So that's why COVID was high alert for some people, especially Bjorn, because they're so susceptible to it.
Of course.
COVID was so much stronger than the normal flu, but parents of disabled children or disabled people themselves fight every year with winter because even a flu can kill them. So you have to be very, very careful around people like that. And also, as Bjorn's disability has gone on, he used to eat orally for 10 years of his life, but it got to a stage that the muscles in the throat don't work as well anymore, and he can actually choke, and it can go right down the wrong hole and can end up with pneumonia. So when that actually happened, they inserted like a tube in Bjorn's tummy, so he's now tube fed. So he has a special food that he gets like normal food, but it's in a blended form. So there's so many. It starts off with a very normal cerebral palsy. You don't really see it on some kids until they start getting older, and then they start having seizures. They start noticing that the feet are not aligning properly. They can't walk properly. They definitely can't crawl. A lot of people with CP. So you end up having a person sitting in a chair, and when a person is sitting in a chair, they're not weight bearing on their feet, which means their feet are not sitting on the ground and impacting the ground. What that does with feet doing that is it fires up all the muscles and everything in the body so that the body naturally moves in a correct way. But when you have cerebral palsy, when you're sitting, lying for a long time, that's why physio comes in so much later to help people to make sure they're stretching, that they're bending. But unfortunately, it just gets worse. He's had problems with his hips where he's had to have hip corrections. He's had Botox in his Achilles to strengthen and relax the muscles. He's also had the top of his femur bones cut off. So basically, he will never stand again. He'll never weight bear again because the pain of him standing and then his body is not standing straight is incredibly painful, and we're always looking for a solution to lessen Bjorn's pain. We're not looking for him to be the next marathon runner because that's never going to happen. You have to have a reality check with yourself. But I can also say, and it's something that came from a doctor, when you start one surgery in the body, something goes wrong in the body because it's not natural to correct bones. It's not natural to do that. If you break a bone, put it back together, that's okay. But people in Bjorn's setting, any sort of corrections you do, it gets worse in different parts of the body. So if you force and pin, like we did, pin the bones together, he starts turning in that way because the body is doing it. It's a very debilitating, I would say, disability, a CP, especially for people in Bjorn's setting, because you're constantly also correcting the body the whole time, and the body's not meant to be manipulated in that way.
Thank you for sharing this in such depth. It has clearly not been easy for Bjorn or for you and the rest of the family. At one point, you had to actually move Bjorn to a separate living setting. How old was he at that time?
He was 13 years old. I'll take you through the decision that we made for that. That was probably one of the hardest decisions we've ever had to make. Bjorn, we were both working full-time, and I chose to work full-time and take care of Bjorn because I wanted Bjorn to go to school and have an experience. So the first school, public school, Volker school, was actually a Volker school with a special needs section next to it, and I can highly advise against doing that.
Against doing that.
I don't know how the schools are, but I've seen both sides, and I will say that special needs kids, disabled children and young adults need one school system where they're together, where it's only focused on them. The side schools are not always run by the most qualified, experienced teachers. And you know, I think the whole point that Denmark tried to do this was to make sure that the normal kids could mingle with the special needs kids and maybe they would have more empathy. It's a very sweet idea, but these special needs kids needs a lot more than what they're given at the normal schools. So I started to find my voice in Denmark as I got stronger here. And I came to see Bjorn, and I always like to drop by, and I was able to do this because I was freelancing at the time.
Yeah.
I like to drop by and just check up. And the place where he stays now, I don't tell them when I'm coming. I just arrive because I have this, I'm sorry, but this not lack of trust, but I've been burnt too many times to know that I mistrust my gut. And if I want to go see Bjorn, I'm just going to go see him.
So you had this sensation, or you experienced it firsthand, that Bjorn was not thriving there.
Yeah.
It was almost a situation of neglect, and Bjorn was reacting with fevers, and it was happening one too many times. That was his
He would
way
be
of
fine.
communicating his being ill at ease. So
Yeah.
these experiences made you want to change his school to a focus school. And at what point did you come to also realize that I cannot take care of him at home anymore? He cannot be here, and he needs more care.
Yeah. So when we moved him to the new school, I contacted the commune and I said, I want Bjorn moved to a better school. I found a school in Klingsted, brilliant school, all catered around only disabled kids, a lot of activities, it was a very inclusive school.
Right.
And I said to them, I need him moved to the school. And they were like, well, we'll go do our own investigation. And then they came back to me and they said that the school that he was at said that he's in the right place. And I said, well, I disagree. And I'd looked up the rules on this because I was starting to understand that communes deal with these rules. And the only way they will change it is if you bring it up and you say, okay, I know that this is not correct. So I've started to learn about, they're called paragraph rules. When you deal in the commune. So I said, I found this paragraph rule and it says that if I would like as a parent to make a change for my son, I have the right to do that. And they said, yes, you're correct. So do you want to do that? And I said, yes, I want to do that.
So
and
you actually learned how to navigate legality and find the right way to represent yourself and your case.
Yeah. You have to play them at their own game in the commune. You have to listen to the people that are working in the commune have to follow the government laws.
Yes.
And that is everything about Denmark. They cannot cut corners. They have to do everything within a box. And for somebody that comes from a country like South Africa where there are no rules, and I'd imagine India too, in a certain way, it's really difficult to change your perception to understanding this is the way they work in a framework. So I'm not negative. I was back at the time, but they're just doing their job.
Yeah. And they have a very certain way of doing their job because they have been given clear guidelines.
Exactly.
And that is a very clear box. So when you would manage to speak up for yourself in an official way, that change happened?
That change happened, but they were not prepared because right now the government was paying for Bjorn to be picked up at home and taken to school and back. The government then said, we will move Bjorn, but because we believe he's in the right place now and you want to move him, you have to pay for that cost. That extra cost difference I said, fine. I honestly didn't fight them on that because if it was an extra couple of kilometers, I don't care. As long as he went into this new place.
Okay.
When he went into the new place, he was never sick again. So he found the right place.
And this was only for the day hours, or was it a full living arrangement?
No, it was just the day. So he finished his focus school when he was 17, just before he turned 18.
Oh, beautiful. So he did finish regular public school like any other child. That's so heartwarming to hear.
Yeah.
Despite it being so uphill, this school in Ringsted is where he finished his focus school.
It's where he finished his focus school, and because he wasn't going to go on to further education, there was an option for him to do what's called STU. STU is set up for people with disabilities that want to do like a further 2 years education. But because Bjorn was turning 18, he falls under a new rule. And because he was moving to a different area in Kur, where he would be full-time, to take him back to the school, back and forth every day, it's a lot of money for the commune. So they just said it's really not worth it. Also, when he's on holiday for the school, who's going to take care of him? Because Bjorn's in what's called an activity center now. So when you become an adult, what they do with you during the day is they find things for you to do, riding, sensory music, because he can't do anything and be part of like normal life. Bjorn is actually on full-time pension when he turned 18 because he can't contribute anything. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it works in Denmark. I'm not saying it's great, but that school in Ringsted was brilliant. He was so happy there. Really, really happy.
But he wasn't living with you already from age 30.
Yeah, so he moved to that school and he was basically there during the day at the school. And then when he was 12 years old, my husband came to me and he said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, why? And he said, it's killing me. He said, I feel like I'm moving further and further away of being a father for Bjorn. I'm more like a carer because Nikolai would come home from work. I would come home from work and we care. And we kind of go to our respective corners. I would sit with Bjorn. Nikolai would prepare Bjorn's food. I would feed Bjorn. Nikolai would eat with Connor. Also, Connor was in and out because he went to gymnasium and then he went to after school. So it kind of left us as a very disjointed family, but more than anything, we were exhausted.
Yes.
He was awake every 2 hours. That means we only slept every 2 hours.
Yeah.
It took a toll on us physically as well.
Yeah, and you see, when we talk about Bjorn, we often talk about the protagonist with the disability. And the caregivers become supporting characters. But now today you are my protagonist and your husband is the protagonist of his story as well. And it is very important to check on how you guys have, where did you find the strength? Where did you find the physical and the mental strength? Not the emotional strength is a given, like you said, you were not being a superstar. You were just caring for your child, and any parent would do. It has clearly taken a toll on you as individuals and your family life and your family dynamic. And at that point, you said, I understand you, my dear husband. Let's do this.
No, I said to him, all right, you're moving out. I'm staying here. Bjorn will be full-time with me. He's not going anywhere. And my husband went, that's not what I meant. I want to be with you guys still, but I can't do this. And if you're not ready yet, you take the time you need, whether it's 1 year, 3 years, or whatever. I will keep going.
Yeah.
Until you're ready for him to go. And it was basically a year later, and we had a fantastic sales behandler, a social worker, who would come and check up on us, how's it going? And from when I first met him, when we moved to the country, so Bjorn was about 7 when we moved to the country, he would say to me, listen, if you ever feel like it's too much, there is an option to move Bjorn into full-time care. And I remember him saying to me at first, I was so insulted. And I said, Bjorn is staying with us until he's at least 18 years old. When he's an adult, he can move out and we'll find a place for him. And he said, okay, it's an option. I'm just letting you know. And every year he would very carefully bring it up with us because he knows that we did so much for Bjorn.
Yeah. So the caseworker was not just checking on Bjorn, but was the caseworker also checking on you guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
They're trained to make sure, because for Bjorn, it's important that he's also in a safe environment.
Yes.
Because parents can run on empty and then have an explosion and something could happen to that kid. So as much as they're there for making sure that, the kid's okay, they've also got to make sure the parents are capable. Because some parents do get their kids taken from them because they have breakdowns. And I have learned since moving Bjorn out not to judge anybody else that moves their child out, because it's one of the most heartbreaking decisions you can make, because you feel like a failure as a parent. And you're not. You are just, and I can say honestly that Denmark's take on it is so much better than what my friends' responses were in South Africa. When we decided to move Bjorn out, it was a year after Nikolai had said, I'm done. So it was a year. We were sitting with the sales behandler, and I just said to him, Tim, I can't do this anymore. And I just broke down. And he was like, you never get upset. He said, you're always fighting for Bjorn. What's going on? And I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I love him.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching, but it's so real for you to admit that it was too much.
As a mother, I'm not saying dads are any different, but come on. As a mom, if you say that you can't do it anymore, that's tough,
Yeah, and that says a lot. I mean, one cannot even conceptualize or imagine how hard it would have been for you to feel completely drained.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the younger parents of today are so lucky they have social media, because people are sharing their feelings now on social media. I follow a lot of moms in Denmark that have handicapped kids, and I'm seeing a lot of them coming to the stage where they say, I can't anymore. And they put it out on there, and the response is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because parents that are going or have gone through that know what you're about to go through, because you feel like a failure as a parent. You feel like, why couldn't I do this? Why can't I? But sometimes the disability, I always used to say to Bjorn, I love you so much, but I don't like your disability. And that's what it is. I put them in two separate categories. His disability is one thing. Bjorn is, as a human being, is another. He's beautiful. But the disability that fights him the whole time, that gives him all these hospital visits, I hate it.
Yeah. And also to be able to reach an evolved state where you are able to separate the two. Bjorn is more than his disability.
Hugely.
But how we only see a disabled person.
Yeah.
And we tend to conflate the two. We need to see that there is a human and a loving and a smart individual in there.
And the best sense of humor.
Yeah.
I can't, the people that know him, that have got to know him, they're like, he has got the funniest. I mean, his Peter Gauls, the carers that look after him.
Yeah.
I am so grateful he is the human being he is, because you worry when you put somebody in full-time care.
Yeah.
It's not their child. Will they love your child as much as you love them, see your child for who they are? And I would say probably 90% of the carers. What is so popular that when carers leave these places because they decide to go somewhere or they've had enough, they contact me on Facebook and say, can we be friends with you on Facebook so we can follow
That's
Bjorn?
So beautiful.
And that to me tells me a lot. It tells me that Bjorn's very loved.
Yeah.
And I've become friends with a lot of the carers after they've left, because it's not professional for them to have that sort of Facebook relationship with the parents, and I get it.
But there is genuine emotion and there is genuine connection.
That's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really heartwarming to hear that people had genuine connection with Bjorn, and that they wanted to keep in touch, and that he found ultimately his space, so to say. He found a good footing in this institution and with the Folkeskole at Ringsted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at this juncture, I would love to ask you, so many difficult circumstances arose, but help came your way as well in one form or the other.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look back, could you have imagined doing this in another country away from Denmark? I mean, it's not like you have tried and tested 5 different other countries, but this is just to hear from you if you have any language around what role Denmark played for you in all of this. After all, this was such a life-changing decision to move here. And how do you feel about that decision today?
I think it was the best decision we ever made. Denmark has taught me to be more logical and take the emotions out of stuff. When you're dealing with having a child and you're sitting in a country where they're paying for everything, whether that's operations or the care that he eventually gets in an institution, you've got to put that against where you've come from. If I'd been in South Africa, I don't know what we could have been able to afford for Bjorn. I don't know. Our private healthcare would never have covered all the surgeries that he's had. Every time you go to a doctor, even if you're under private healthcare, you still have to pay a little bit. I'm not sure if our lifestyle would have actually handled and been able to afford a lot of things. I know a lot of people in South Africa battle with a disabled family member trying to keep up cost of living versus all the medicines versus all the surgeries. I think in Denmark, when Bjorn became an adult at 18 years old, they obviously make the decision, is Bjorn able to go into the workforce or can Bjorn not do anything? And it doesn't make him less of a human, but what it does is it says, okay, if you become a full-time pensioner, they start looking, and I believe this is how they look at it. Bjorn becomes, and this is going to sound really hard if you're not there yet, if you're a parent that's not there yet. Bjorn will become a drain to society. Society will have to keep lifting Bjorn up, paying taxes that go towards Bjorn's pension. Bjorn will never, ever be able to pay towards SCAT, the tax services in South Africa. He doesn't become a contributing member in Denmark of society. So he really essentially becomes a cost. to Denmark. So when he becomes an adult, because they see that he's not going to be able to earn any money, he becomes a little bit, and I say this as nicely as possible, a drain on society where he can't take care of himself. So we need to take, and this is where the sort of the wonderful thing about Denmark and why we pay the high taxes that we do, that money goes into taking care of somebody like Bjorn.
Yeah.
And I think I have a lot of friends here, foreign friends, that were bitching about the taxes before, but when they see Bjorn and they see what it helps him with, then they become more, okay, I'm okay with paying the taxes because you're helping somebody that really cannot help themselves.
Yeah.
So I think when he becomes an adult, he becomes a cost, and they have to, as people in the commune that are working in the communes, they have to go by the laws, but they also have a budget. So everything gets turned over. The coin gets turned over and over again. Does Bjorn really need that? Is Bjorn going to make a difference? I know that a lot of parents here get really mad that once every 6 months or once a year, they go through this whole thing with the parents saying, can Bjorn be by himself? How many nappies does Bjorn use a day? How often do they have to change him? How often do they have to bath him? The reason they do that is they're trying to calculate the time spent on Bjorn.
Yeah.
Because he does become a number.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible thing to say about my child, but you have to, I think that's what Denmark's taught me. There's a logical way of thinking about things. You've got to take emotion out of it. I come from a country that can be very emotionally driven. So I've learned how to sort of say, okay, this is what it is. It's not personal to Bjorn. It's just the logics and the reality of it. So that's what Denmark has taught me, how to take emotion out of stuff and deal with stuff differently.
That is such an interesting perspective. I can see it even in my regular life, that things are so organized, things are so thought through. It's almost mechanical, but it's done right. And it's not possible to do that unless you are keeping your rationality ahead of your feelings, which is why systems function. And you said it so rightly. You know, we talk about the Danish welfare system. These are the moments when the welfare system really can be seen and felt.
Yeah.
The high taxes we pay is to take care of everyone in society, rich or poor, able or unable. And really, Denmark is taking care of its citizens. Have you ever felt that the system could be bettered in certain ways?
Yeah, I would say that when I arrived in 2008, the handicap system was better.
Okay.
You could get more. It's actually got worse. And this is what a lot of organizations that I know that I work with are fighting for.
Okay.
So what they are doing is they are taking away more benefits in the handicap region, as much as they are as well with the elderly people. These are the two sort of areas in the politics that kind of get hit a lot. But there are people in organizations. One of the people that I work with at Changing Places is Sif Holst. She is a member of the Danish Handicap Union, and she actually fights for equality rights. She's handicapped herself. She fights for female rights as well, female empowerment. And she's quite instrumental in talking about the new laws that are coming in. And I think at the politics level, something needs to happen. Denmark is not playing by the rules. Denmark is falling short of what the rest of the EU are doing.
And what help us understand how Denmark is falling short. So what I learned so far is that Denmark is taking away resources from vulnerable groups such as disabled groups and the elderly.
Yeah.
And things were better 17 years ago.
Yeah.
But what else is Denmark not doing that they should be doing according to EU standards?
I don't want to go into the particulars because I don't think I'm the person that you could actually say exactly.
Yeah.
But if you follow a group called 1 Million Stemmer, which is called 1 Million Voices, they are fighting quite a lot about being heard in Parliament, about disability rights. They're making a lot of changes that could potentially be very, very dangerous for disabled people.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be a system where they had more control over what happened in the disability community, and those rights have been taken and moved over to communes having the right to decide who gets equipment, who gets cars, who gets help, to more severe things.
Yeah.
But that's something that I think somebody more qualified could go into with that. But yeah, it's not where it should be. It should we should be going back, but I think the politicians are a little nervous of the handicap groups because it is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is a big group that they have to, and it's not just one organization. There's many. There's neurodivergent as well.
Yeah.
I know, for instance, for the mental health section in Denmark, if you want to be diagnosed with ADHD or something, you could be waiting in a queue for over a year to get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is definitely being discussed very much in our political sphere and in the media in Denmark.
Exactly.
Quite rightly so. And socially, so one thing is that you got the economic help from the state, you got the commune's help, who of course are asking tough questions. How much do you need? And what do you need? Because they have to keep within a budget.
Correct.
And socially, you found the acceptance as well, right?
I feel like they're a lot further ahead than somewhere like South Africa. Like I said before, in South Africa, having a disability is something to be ashamed of. I feel here, I see more and more people out and about to a certain degree, and that's where we'll come on to changing places.
Yeah. So now tell us, why changing places? What was the need for changing places in Denmark?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there is a chapter in the UK.
Yes.
But you started this movement in Denmark, Changing Places Denmark. Mm-hmm. And that too rather recently, after many years, living with Bjorn and his disability. Why now? And why?
I think shortly after Bjorn moved out, I actually started the International. So that was my first sort of project. And yeah, I was in a stage like, what was my next sort of chapter after Bjorn moved out, and took some time off as well with my husband. But very much in Bjorn's life at the same time. So he is living somewhere else, but we're very much on top of things. So I took the time to sort of think, well, what do I want next? Because I think when you're a parent of a handicapped child, it's always about them, because that's how you fight. But when the caring aspect goes away, actually my husband and I felt quite lost, because we're used to doing medicine and staying up at night and being in hospitals, and not that we don't go to hospital if he's sick, but we were used to that. We were used to the full-time caring, and it's a really difficult thing to get out of when you're in it so long. So I wanted something really different, and I'd always sort of seen my friends were leaving because they just couldn't stay in Denmark, and I felt what was missing in Denmark was a community. And that's why I started the International, because there are other publications, but nobody was doing it community style. And I wanted to hear the stories. Like, you love telling stories and interviewing people. I really wanted to hear everybody's story that decides to move to Denmark. After doing this for 7 years, last year, or it was a couple of years back, I went to visit a friend in the UK. She went out we went out together. Her child's also got cerebral palsy. We went to a supermarket, and her child needed a change. And I said to her, should I get a jacket? Do you have a towel we can put on the floor so we can help change Amy? And she said to me, no. She said, we've got a changing places. What do you mean on a floor? And I said, well, we don't have, what is a changing place? And she took me into this bathroom, and I saw everything, and I was blown away. And I'm like, is this just one shop that has this? It was in a local Tesco supermarket. And she said,
is this widely available in the UK, this arrangement?
Yes, there's 2,600 bathrooms.
Incredible. So,
but they started the movement 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, so they've had a bit of a head start, but their focus was in what they were very, very lucky. There was a young man by the name of Zach who kind of picked up on this movement. He has cerebral palsy, but he can speak. He was just sick and tired of never finding a bathroom when he went out, and he wanted to go and do things.
Yeah.
And he decided to start a campaign, and his movement, which came from another movement to do this, ended up in front of the government.
Right.
In
of
Parliament.
The British government, yes.
Yeah. So he was in front of the government, and he basically said what he wanted, and he wanted something to change. And the government put a lot of money behind this, along with Muscular Dystrophy Foundation in the UK. And yeah, to date, they have over 2,600 toilets.
That is definitely incredible and impressive. So when you saw that arrangement, what happened?
Yeah. So when I came back from the UK, I came back to my writers, and I had a writer that was writing a special needs column, because I thought it was important, whatever information I'd gone through and found, how to apply for a car, how do you get this equipment, I put it into an article to help other parents, because I can't be the only one who's struggling with this, right? And what I found out was interesting that a lot of Danish parents started contacting me and saying, thank you for putting this into words. And these are Danish parents. And if Danish parents don't know, there's not a lot of hope for us. So I told the journalist, cover this article about changing places. I want to know more about it. And we contacted the people in the UK. We did an article about it. And then shortcut to last year, August, summertime, I got contacted by this really strange man called Harvard from Norway. And he kept bugging me and saying, I want you to start changing places Denmark. And I thought, who is this person? I don't know who this is. And I kind of ignored his first 2 emails, which he likes to joke about now. And then we connected, we had a meeting, and he said to me, I've started changing places in Norway. I have this idea that we're all going to sit under the Nordic umbrella, so all the Nordic countries, and that we will make bathrooms throughout the country so that we can actually drive from one Iceland, Finland, all the way through to Denmark and Sweden, so that we can all have movement with our kids or with other people with disabilities so they can travel. So that's how it started. So I started this nonprofit organization, and we are slowly growing. What is nice is there's already been initiatives before us of people changing places toilets, or what is considered a changing places toilet. But because we hold the trademark logo for changing places, I have to certify all of the toilets, and we've done 4 so far. And the first one was in Copenhagen across from the planetarium. And that was really interesting. But we have very strict stipulations, but we don't actually have a lot of equipment needs inside, because we've decided there's other changing places around the world and they have stipulations and there must be a picture and there must be a mirror. We're not bothered about that. All we're bothered about is space in there for a wheelchair and a carer, or 2 carers. We're worried about that there is a ceiling lift, right? That there is a adult changing bench that can electronically move up and down. And that on the handicapped toilets, you see the handicapped toilets now that have those extended arms. We need to make sure there's one of those, but there's a meter on either side for the carer to actually help assist the person on the toilet. And that's it. The thing about these toilets is access to the toilets has to be kept only to people that have this key or an app. So currently there's a key that you can get through the Danish Handicap Association, and you have to prove that you're disabled. The reason we do this is the equipment inside there is very expensive. So if it's open to the public, there's vandalism. But yeah, we aim to have more.
Who's funding the Danish chapter? Where is the money coming from for this to happen?
Nothing. We've had one very nice financial, not a lot, but a little bit of a financial contribution. But we're trying to get funding from different organizations. We have partnerships that you can be involved in. C memberships are open for anybody with a commercial angle. So that could be any of the people that sell the equipment. But at the same time, they will go onto our partner list. So if somebody comes to us and says, we want to build a changing places, or we want to convert a changing places. So currently what we're doing now with changing places, if somebody wants to become a C member, they can on board as a C member. They pay us a yearly fee. That yearly fee will go to the running costs. But if somebody asks us, I want to build a changing places, how do I do this? We advise them what they need. If they say, where can we get the equipment? We give them a list of our partners. We are in no way obligated to say, use this guy, or this guy. So that keeps our hands sort of clean from any sort of, why are you favoring one manufacturer over another?
Well, as we come to the close of this really insightful conversation, Lyndsay, I can't help but ask, how are the 4 of you doing in the family? Where is Connor? How is Bjorn doing? And how is Nikolai and yourself doing now that Bjorn is 21 years old?
Well, currently my 27-year-old Connor, he's part-time living at home with us, hopefully about to move out soon. He has a girlfriend who's from another country, which of course, I mean, that makes sense. But he's he actually works with a young man with muscular dystrophy. So he's kind of gone into this caring line as well. Whether or not this is going to be something he does for the rest of his life, he's not sure. But he's been doing this for a while. He's actually got a lot of experience with lots of different disabilities. So that's where he is. Bjorn is doing really well. He's very good. And then myself and my husband, we're good. Nikolai is still working in IT. I'm still doing what I'm doing. And yeah, we're pretty much enjoying life. And yeah, all's good.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
They say that God only gives you as much as you can handle.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
I'm going to say that again. That God only gives you as much as you can handle. And clearly, you were capable to navigate this big life challenge. I am very grateful that you took the time to go in depth with this really unique life situation, and that you found your way out through people, through country, through system, through economy. And today here you are, and Bjorn is a grown-up, and you claim that you are happy and in a good place. And that's what we all wish for you. It has been very big an experience for me to listen to you. Thank you for making time for this. To my audience, if you have had the time and patience to listen to Lyndsay's tough story, but also a very inspiring story full of courage and love and warmth, then I would love for you to share your opinion. Do feel free to comment at the bottom of this video, which is being broadcast on YouTube. And in order to show your appreciation and support, please do feel free to subscribe to the channel and share the content with people in your network who are migrants or who are prospective migrants and dreaming of going abroad. I give you my sincere thanks, Lyndsay, once again for being on this podcast. And to my viewers, I must say, till I meet you again with a wonderful new guest, I hope you take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Thank you.